This past year has been one of the toughest for the aviation industry. After the unprecedented drop in passenger traffic in 2020, the restructuring plans of the world's airlines become what could be the biggest theme of the year 2021. Regarding its restructuring program plans, there has been more reports lately coming out regarding Philippine Airlines, with some stating that the airline is looking to file for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the US. This video will highlight the current situation of Philippine Airlines given the COVID-19 pandemic, and a summary of what has been reported regarding the plans for Philippine Airlines' future. The recent reports of a possible Chapter 11 filing in the US by Philippine Airlines stems from a report from Flight Global involving the dealings of the Manila-based airline and its leasers as the airline continues to count its losses amid the COVID-19 pandemic and the aviation demand downturn. To summarize the 2020 experience for Philippine Airlines, majority of its flight operations have been suspended since late March as global travel restrictions were put in place. For a few months leading into the summer of 2020, Philippine Airlines was limited to operating repatriation flights and cargo operations. While some of its Southeast Asian nation counterparts resumed domestic flights earlier, Philippine Airlines eventually resumed limited domestic and international operations around the summertime. While domestic operations has been gradually resumed, there has been service interruptions due to the varying degrees of travel restrictions put in place on and off, involving the main hub of Manila along with the other cities and provinces in the country, due to spikes in COVID-19 cases a year. Also, the airline has been affected by the capacity limits for the quarantine facilities at Manila, which has resulted in the airline shifting some of its international arrivals to Cebu and Clark. Compounded with the global travel restrictions and the current COVID-19 situation in the Philippines, this has affected the operations of Philippine Airlines, resulting in a net loss of around 29 billion pesos during the first 3 quarters of the year. That reported net loss alone is greater than the combined net losses of 2018 and 19 combined. While the airline has not really made any more further announcements regarding the complete restructuring plans, it has taken some actions including the reduction of its workforce. The airline initiated a workforce reduction program affecting around 30% of its workforce, involving around 2,300 employees. With that said, this brings up the potential filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the US courts for Philippine Airlines. If Philippine Airlines decides to go forward with this plan, it would be done to help manage its financial liabilities, especially with a reported debt of around 5 billion Philippine pesos. Like many airlines around the world, among these biggest expenses could be attributed to its fleet. More specifically, according to Serum and Flight Global, the airline currently deals with 19 aircraft leasing companies who are exposed to the current situation of Philippine Airlines. Combined, they are the source of around 49 of the jets that makes up the Philippine Airlines fleet, and this covers every aircraft type on the aircraft fleet list, from the Airbus A320 family to the A350s, along with the Boeing 777s. In addition, this also includes some of the Dash 8-400s used by PAL Express. While the potential for Philippine Airlines to be filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy has been making headlines lately, hints of this has been mentioned as early as last year, something that was briefly mentioned in a previous video about the current situation of Philippine Airlines back in December. However, now there has been more attention put to it as now the plans of restructuring is looming, which many of us who do follow the Philippine aviation industry will be anticipating the airline to make its official announcements. Based on what we have seen from other airlines, including the likes of Singapore Airlines recently, this could come along with the announcement of the annual financial results for Philippine Airlines in 2020, something which has so far not been released yet. In the meantime, the potential for filing of Chapter 11 bankruptcy by Philippine Airlines could be a cause for concern, and rightfully so for the employees and the flying public of the Philippines. This is likely something even more concerning if you are not familiar with what Chapter 11 filing is. This is often done by US and foreign-based companies to manage the financial obligations, especially with US-based creditors, which Philippine Airlines does deal with in terms of their aircraft leasing. While there are companies that do cease to exist, others do exit the situation in a much more stronger financial situation. With that, the overall outcome of what happens with the air companies such as Philippine Airlines often heavily depends on the overall rehabilitation plans that the company takes. The airline has a good position in the Philippine aviation industry with the large wide-body jets capable of offering the cargo operations and the long-haul flights its main rivals, Philippines Air Asia and Cebu Pacific, may not be able to do. Eventually, the path of recovery will be heavily dependent on easing of travel restrictions within the country, as well as its key international destinations. This situation would be far much more better for the airline other than seeing further travel restrictions and having to turn to the Philippine government for possible bailout. In the meantime, much of the observers of the Philippine aviation industry will be heavily anticipating the release of the financial results along with the complete rehabilitation plans for the airline. I definitely hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.